Last night we told you about the Biden administration's efforts to monitor and intimidate this show. On Sunday, we heard from a whistleblower within the U.S. government, someone with direct knowledge, who warned us that the NSA was reading our electronic communications, our emails and texts, and was planning to leak them selectively in an effort to hurt us. This person had details from my emails that no one outside the recipient could have known. So it was not a delusion, it was entirely real. In fact, it was confirmed. After the show last night, after we announced this, other news organizations acted as if it's totally normal for heavily politicized intel agencies to spy on and threaten journalists they disagree with. It's no big deal. Stop whining. But it is a big deal. It is completely wrong, not to mention illegally. And this is hardly the first time the so-called intelligence community has done something like this. They've done an awful lot of it. Look it up. If we let them continue to do it, it's the end of democracy. Democracy can't function with semi-independent, highly politicized intel agencies. It's really dangerous. For its part, the Biden administration just ignored the story. They did not deny the story. They can't. They know that it's true. Today, the president's flak was asked about it on Air Force One. Here's the exchange.
Tucker Carlson said that the NSA is spying on him. Is the administration aware of any espionage or listening efforts on U.S. citizens by the NSA, and is Tucker Carlson one of them?
Well, the NSA, as I think you're well aware, I'm sure everyone's aware, everyone on this plane is aware, I should say, is an entity that focuses on foreign threats and individuals who are attempting to do us harm on foreign soil. So that is their purview, but beyond that, I would point you to the intelligence community.
It's like she's reading the Wikipedia entry. Ask them! But here's what to notice. No denial. Of course, she's right that the NSA is chartered to spy on foreigners, not on Americans. That's illegal. And yet the NSA does routinely spy on Americans. It won't call it spying. That's exactly what it is. Millions of Americans. And sometimes it does it for political reasons. And everyone knows this. Everyone, including sitting members of the Intel Committee. Some of them are paranoid about their own communications. That's true. In Washington, this is just considered fine. But it's not fine. It is dangerous and it's wrong. Some faceless hack in a powerful government spy agency decides he doesn't like what you think, so he's going to hurt you and there's nothing you can do about it? That could happen to you. And when it does happen, trust us. NBC News will call you a delusional QAnon conspiracy theorist for complaining about it. Well, this morning we decided to just call Paul Nakasone directly. He's the highly political left-wing four-star general who runs the NSA. The receptionist refused to put us through. We're American citizens, though, so we kept trying, because it's our right. This afternoon, we got his direct line, and we tried again. Nakasone's assistant seemed shocked that someone whose email the NSA is reading would dare to call the director himself. Shut up, serf, obey! So they told us Nakasone just wasn't there. Then, just minutes before air tonight, the NSA sent us an infuriatingly dishonest formal statement, an entire paragraph of lies written purely for the benefit of the intel community's lackeys at CNN and MSNBC, all those people they hire with the titles on the screen. They also tweeted it out a few minutes ago. Now, last night on the show, we made a very straightforward claim. NSA has read my private emails without my permission, period. That's what we said. Tonight's statement from the NSA does not deny that. Instead, it comes with this non sequitur. In part, quote, Tucker Carlson has never been an intelligence target of the agency. Okay, glad to know. But the question remains, did the Biden administration read my personal emails? That's the question that we asked directly to NSA officials when we spoke to them about 20 minutes ago in a very heated conversation. Did you read my emails? And again, they refused to say. Again and again. And then they refused even to explain why they couldn't answer that simple question. We can't tell you, and we won't tell you why we can't tell you. My emails. And the message was clear. We can do whatever we want. We can read your personal texts. We can read your personal emails. We can send veiled threats your way to brush you back if we don't like your politics. We can do anything. We're our own country. And there's literally nothing you can do about it. We're in charge. You're not. Orwellian does not begin to describe the experience. It was like living in China. But we should get used to it. Now that the Biden administration has classified tens of millions of patriotic Americans, the kind who served in the military and fly flags in front of their homes, as potential domestic terrorists, white supremacist saboteurs, we're going to see a whole lot more of this kind of thing. A whole lot more. Harmeet Dillon is a civil rights attorney. We're happy to have her on the show tonight. She's dealt with a lot of this stuff. In a text exchange we had a couple of hours ago, I expressed my frustration. You said, quote, "I'm not surprised at all." It seems to me we should be shocked by this. We have a right to be as American citizens. Why can't we find out? This hardly just applies to me. Why can't any American find out if some bureaucrat in a spy agency is reading your private email? It's a really simple question. Why can't we know?
Well, you should be able to find out, Tucker, and the reason I said I'm not surprised is for the last 20 years, since 9/11, I and other civil libertarians have been screaming about the Patriot Act and other laws, but dating back to 1947, our securities laws have said that the spying may only be on foreigners, not on American citizens,
Yes.
but our government regularly flouts that. I mean, you know, we have the example of James Clapper lying to Congress about spying on American citizens and gathering millions of pieces of data, phone call records, and all of that. And so when you ask why, well, of course, it's about this military-industrial complex, the security-industrial complex, and they justify the spying on Americans in the name of, we're really focusing on foreigners, and the American data that we scoop up, they call that incidental. So I suspect if you're able, because you are a person with a lot of connections and this is a good platform, if you are able to find out more information about this, I think what you're going to find is that you are being described as incidental. So the gathering of your information is going to be because they're really focusing on somebody else. But I want to really break that down. When you look at the Carter Page violations, for example, the lies to the FISA court, does anybody think that the national security apparatus was trying to find out Carter Page's activities and communications? No. The trick is, if they can get a surveillance order on an individual, what they're able to do is scoop up all of the communications of all of the people who reach out to that person, text them even you know, without any predicate. And so that's really where it's at. And so that's a huge dragnet. And when Americans have become scandalized, or members of Congress are asking questions about this, there have been some reining in of these things, but now the current law is that the phone companies gather this data and they have to store it, but the NSA can go over and ask for it and go shopping in a treasure trove of billions of pieces of data anytime they want. And in fact, dating back to 2018, the NSA has looked at or had access to over 500 million records of American communications. So you're one of them, but frankly, any important person, any enemy of the state should expect that there's some way that the NSA can get a hold of somebody near you, get an order or a right to ask questions, and all of a sudden they have all that information, and a bunch of unelected, faceless bureaucrats are going shopping in your data, and then you know, talking to the guy next door in the cubicle next door, passing it around the office,
and then
making
threatening
plans
me
of what to do with it.
Yeah,
exactly.
And threatening me, which is exactly what they did. So the system you described might work if you had patriotic, nonpartisan, non-political, duty-oriented bureaucrats who were fighting, say, a Cold War. But if you change the focus of the war on terror inward against Americans who are disobedient or don't support the regime, by definition, you're going to have corrupt ideologues and partisans using this information against American citizens with, by the way, the help of NBC News and CNN and the entire edifice of intel-connected, totally corrupt news agencies. I mean, that's like a recipe for tyranny.
Right, and let me add a couple of things that'll not make you sleep any better, which is that when you try to go into court and challenge these, as some civil rights organizations, EFF and the American Civil Liberties Union, cases last for over a decade. The current case pending in the Ninth Circuit is called Jewel versus National Security Agency, and for the last 13 years that case has bounced back and forth up and down to the courts. So if you can prove that you're being spied on, which is what all of the you know, glitterati there in DC are mocking you for saying, you know, then the government says, well, because this is a national security issue, we can't reveal any information. We're not going to give you any information in response to subpoenas. But you usually don't get that far. They just say, you can't prove it. It's anecdotes, even if you have a witness like you have. And so you have no recourse. No lawsuits against the NSA have effectively been successful in stopping the spying on a particular American citizen.
Look, I'm not, I mean, I hate even to be put in a position where I have to say this. I'm actually not doing anything wrong, so it's not like, if I was, you would be on the front page of the New York Times, you can be sure. But my concern is that this will be used against tens of millions of Americans who have no power whatsoever and are being reclassified as white supremacists, and therefore they're terrorists, and they're going to bear the brunt of this kind of treatment. So here are the questions that we have for the NSA, and we're going to keep pressing them on behalf of a lot of people who are going to face this kind of treatment but have no recourse. Here's the first. Does the NSA have any surveillance product on me or our producers? 2, who authorized the retention of that product? These are all terms of art. The intel community will understand what they mean. And here's the last one. What were the minimization procedures for U.S. citizens and journalists in this case? Will you explain that last one? I think this is a key. This is a key safety mechanism that's supposed to protect us from partisan lunacy, from Nakasonian people like that, but may not be. What's a minimization procedure?
Well, they're supposed to do their best to make sure that there's a screening and filtering that goes into place before this data is either, given to the NSA for use, or certainly to other agencies. I mean, and what's ironic is that the NSA may be among the good guys in our national security apparatus. The NSA doesn't like giving information to the FBI in recent years because the FBI has been blatantly abusing the information that the NSA gives it. And so, in reality, these are self-policing agencies. They're secretive agencies. There is no effective oversight in Congress or in the executive branch, and they run rampant with this information and they weaponize it against American citizens. That's the truth.
That's exactly right. In fact, an NSA official just said to me on the phone, well, we're very carefully overseen by Congress. There's a lot of oversight. And since I've lived in Washington my whole life, I had to laugh because that's a lie. Whatever the NSA does, Mitch McConnell's happy with it on the right, and of course the Democrats are more than happy to see their political enemies hassled by an intelligence agency. It's really scary. Harmeet, I appreciate your work on this issue. One of the last civil libertarians and most important left.